I'll start with a short one. Be me, at the beginning of summer? Go to this cabin owned by the family of a close friend to relax for a weekend. We goof around till night comes. Go to sleep and nearly doze off until bro gives me a nudge. Tells me he can hear faint screams outside the cabin. Dismiss it as a fox until he gives me another nudge and tells me to listen. I can hear what sounds as someone in pain screaming far away. Except I can't locate a direction, other than the sounds getting closer. Then they stop and the forest goes quiet again. Jokes with bro that his uncle, who wasn't in the bedroom near us, was killed and replaced by a fleshgate. The next moment a silhouette casually comes from the forest and enters the cabin. We hear his, uncle, entering his bedroom. Eventually we asked him what was he doing at that hour in the forest, and he says he has no idea about what we were talking about. That was the only time I heard the screaming in that forest. No idea who made them, other than his uncle.
I got one. Be very young native boy, around 4 or 5. Live in woods not too far from reserve. Live in a house that has a ground level extension. Night time, maybe around 10 p.m. Parents and family members are all upstairs in living room. Get hungry and decide to go downstairs into extension where kitchen is. Shortly after entering the kitchen, see 2 white figures that appear to be children standing in middle of the room smiling at me. One is a boy and the other a girl, look like twins. Hair all over body, stands up and feel a sense of dread. Immediately run as fast as possible upstairs while screaming. Parents noticeably freaked out. Tell them I saw 2 ghosts downstairs. Parents do what they can to calm me down from the shock of what I've seen. Dad and uncle go downstairs to find nothing. Years go by and I learn that house and area around it is notorious for being super haunted. That experience is clear in my mind like it happened yesterday, and it's always made me question if spirits and ghosts were real or not, because how else could you explain something like that? I've been told kids are more susceptible to seeing spirits, both good and evil, as my little brother saw something similar, except it was a black figure and seemed to resemble an old man.
Okay, citizens of /x/, maybe you can help me out with identifying something I saw last year. Be me, 27, driving box truck for work. 5 a.m., get out on road and cruise through the dark. 20 minutes pass and I'm just rolling at 75 miles per hour. See gray mass on side of road, looks like big dead animal. Aw, someone hit a dog. JPEG. Drive closer, see it's not a dog. Big mass of light gray fur with what looked like a black or dark gray undercoat. 4 legs, each ends with what looks like a giant raccoon paw, with 4 fingers and a thumb with black claws. Torso ends in rounded bump, either it didn't have a head or it was bent back behind it. Long hairless tail, about as long as the body and all black. Tail, belly, legs, and feet, paws were black, everything else was the light gray color. Thing takes up entire shoulder of highway, pic related, is my amateur sketch of creature and paw. See all this in span of 3 to 4 seconds max, still flying by at 75. After I pass it, WTF to myself for a couple minutes thinking about what it could have been. Decide I'll get a better look when I come back this way in the afternoon. Afternoon comes, not there, someone must have moved it or something. What do you think I saw, /x/? I've never heard of giant opossums before, but my mom has seen a giant boar before. I live in Central Texas, so opossums aren't rare here, but I've never seen one even get anywhere near that big.
Everything you said sounds exactly like a possum until the thing takes up entire shoulder of highway. The only theory I have is that you maybe saw a roadkill of a bear, and the tail that you saw was just a snake around it. Regarding the gray fur, if the bear pelt is extra oily, it could reflect back your headlight as you then perceive it as a silvery hair. I'm pretty sure snakes in Texas cannot eat a whole bear, so most likely highway authorities removed the carcass in the morning or when the notice did too. If you still have the drawing, can you draw a traffic cone next to it for height reference?
I'll see if I can make another drawing after work if I can't find the original sketch. Just an oily bear and a snake, bro. Nah, the hair on this was mad and fluffy, not slick and shiny. Think of how a wolf's fur is, it looked like that kind of. There were little splotches or bits that were gray, almost like the strands were darker toward the skin and got lighter towards the tips of the hair. Also, there aren't any gray bears that I know of, and if the tail were a snake, it would have to have been the longest and biggest solid black snake I've ever seen in my life. Went ahead and made another sketch. We have orange cones around the warehouse that come up to my waist or a little higher, so sketch related. There was a metal guardrail about 30 to 40 feet past it on the road, but I'm not 100% sure if I'd be able to scale it to that exactly.
I had an encounter with a demon, archon, whatever malevolent force, about 2 weeks ago, and I was hoping someone with more occult/esoteric knowledge than I could shed some light on what I dealt with. Be me, sleeping. Having lots of dreams that night, which isn't rare but were more vivid than usual. In the middle of a vivid dream, I'm transported to some completely different area. Suddenly I'm standing before a large pulsating gray mass. Closest thing I could compare it to is the stomach on the guy in Pickrell. There is an overwhelming feeling of dread and hopelessness present, and the gray mass is asking me to do disgusting things to it, specifically asking me to whip it and perform BDSM acts on it. Nervous and uncomfortable, I just stand there without doing anything. Wake up. Sleep paralysis, can't move, eyes are shut and laying on my stomach. Feel large something on back. There's a feeling like it's draining me, or feeding off me like a parasite. Whatever it is, it hurts really bad. In my fear, my Catholic upbringing kicks in. Start praying, Jesus, I love you. Feel something like fire on my back, genuinely one of the most excruciating things I've felt. Keep chanting this until fire fades away after what feels like 3 minutes and fall back asleep. Wake up with a diagonal, rectangular laceration where I felt I had been attacked. Any ideas? I've dealt with paranormal stuff before, but this is the only time I'd ever been actually harmed.
I think I grew up in a haunted house. This is one of my earliest memories actually. Be me, 4 years old. Don't have my own room yet, sleeping in a kid bed next to my parents. Wake up in the middle of the night. My parents' room has a wardrobe with a large mirror kinda like Pickrell facing the bed. See a shadowy figure walk back and forth. Humanoid body, head like a wolf. This goes on for several minutes. Not scared, just confused and trying to make sense of it. Eventually fall back asleep. I didn't think much of it at the time, but when I started reflecting about it in the following days, I was creeped out. This left me with a fear of mirrors that lasted until I was about 13. The rational explanations I have for this are either a nightmare or sleep paralysis, but a few other things happened at home in my childhood that make me wonder if there's more to it. I'm staying at my parents' ATM for college break. I wonder if I'll be able to make sense of this stuff.
That's an authentic Brabantian folk tale. I heard it from my granny, though in a slightly different version, my granny's version. A farmer had a son that wasn't completely right in the head. The boy would steal, get into fights, molest girls, and it was even believed he had killed an old widow living alone in a cottage. The villagers would beat him up, and he was forbidden from entering the town and the church. His father, who still loved his son, stopped going to church as well. As the boy grew older, he mellowed out somewhat, but the people still claimed he went out at night to cause mischief. One day, while going around at night, doing God know what, the devil appeared to him. He offered to drown away all his sorrows and pains and make him normal again, only he had to take a small girl and cut open her neck at the old oak in the forest. The boy kidnapped a small child from a nearby farmhouse and did what the devil instructed. The devil appeared to him and said, "Good, you have now taken the road of no return, before next midnight you will drown." The boy panics and next evening he goes to the local church. The priest first wants to turn him away. But after he breaks down sobbing, and explains everything, he agrees to help him. The priest and boy stay up the entire night in the church, praying and talking. For the first time in his life the boy genuinely confesses his sins. An hour before midnight it starts raining violently, like it has never rained before. The entire church is shaking. Suddenly the rain completely stops. When the priest's pocket watch shows it's midnight, the boy howls in delight. "Curse you and your church and curse Christ, I have beaten the devil." The boy then runs outside. The priest, after being dazed, follows him. Just before the priest walks outside he hears the bells of the city's cathedral in the distance. His pocket watch was off, just by a minute. When he does outside he finds the boy drowned in a puddle. Another fun story I got from my granny. One day, there was a farmer named Tunis. Tunis was a pig of a man, but with a good sense of humor, and everyone liked him. Everyone except the local sheriff. Every time Tunis went to the city market, the sheriff would be annoyed at the stupid jokes Tunis was telling him. This went on for 5 years, when one year out of spite the sheriff demanded Tunis pay an extra sheep tax for insulting him. Tunis got angry, grabbed the sheriff by the local and had to pay an extra fine. Angry, he decided he would get back his money, so he started thinking of ways to smuggle a sheep into the market, without paying any taxes. The first year he hid a sheep in a barrel, the sheriff found that one out. The second year he hid a sheep in a fake bottom on his cart, that one didn't work so well. The third year, he dressed up a sheep like his fat sister, but alas that failed as well, and every time he had to pay a fine. Tunis, for the first time in his life, really started thinking, how could he smuggle a sheep into the city? This went on for months, until one day, he awoke laughing from his sleep. He was going to dress up the sheep, like a sheep. So, next season, he did just that. He arrived at the city entrance. The sheriff approached him, and immediately started searching his cart. Nothing in the barrels, no double floor, that's his fat sister's alright. The sheriff approaches Tunis and says, "I see you have no more tricks up your sleeves, that is a tax for 12 sheep. No, Tunis says, "I have 13 sheep." The sheriff laughed, "Nice try, Tunis, but that's not a sheep, that's no doubt your brother, or the neighbor's boy dressed up as a sheep." Tunis looks him in the eyes and says, "No, sheriff, you got to believe me, that's a sheep, I dressed up like a sheep in order to trick you." "Yes," he says, "I put a fake sheep's mask on the sheep, put a sheep's pelt on the sheep's back and put fake hoofs on the sheep." The sheriff looks him in the eyes and says, "Tunis, this is really a joke, even I think is funny. You want me to charge you for an extra sheep so you can take legal action, don't you?" "No, sheriff," Tunis said, "I swear that is a sheep dressed up like a sheep." "Right, and those aren't two legs hidden below the tarp there, those are fake legs, right?" "Now you are a very smart man, sheriff, but those are really two fake legs under that tarp, and I am telling you, this is indeed a sheep dressed up like a sheep." The sheriff grumbles, he has had enough. "Tunis," he says, "you will pay a tax on these 12 sheep and not a sheep more." "Well, alright, sheriff, if you insist." So when Tunis got to the market, he called all the farmers together. "He boys, guess what, I finally was able to smuggle in a sheep." Everyone looked at him in surprise and him how he did it. "Simple, I just dressed up one of the sheep as a sheep, and the sheriff though I was fooling him. I literally outright stated that it was a sheep dressed up like a sheep, and he didn't believe me." That same Tunis and the sheriff were called to the mayor's office for a quick talk. The mayor promised he would prosecute if Tunis stopped his practical joke. Tunis agreed, for he had won over the sheriff.
Watering plants. Hear a shifting sound. Look up at neighbor's house. Paper-thin entity crawls in between the foundation and wall. Look at the place it went into. It is completely sealed, impossible for it to enter. Diagram for explanation. Anyone know what it was?
Be me 15 years old. At Nan's house. Smoking a barrel of pot. Blow all air out of lungs. Take a big hit. Hold for 30 seconds. Blow out smoke. Flake out and fall backwards. Feel back of head hit something. Lose consciousness. Come to on floor. On my back, arms and legs in air. Shaking uncontrollably. Cousin comes in to check on noise. Sees me on floor. 6-foot mirror against wall broken in two. Rolling around in pile of broken glass. Anon you were having a fit. Deny it while getting to my feet. Still a bit shaky. Cousin scared to hell. Takes pot off me. 23 years on. Still have broken half of mirror.
I got one from maybe 7 years back. 16 years/0 me and parents are headed out to meet our cousins to help them set up their music festival. Venue's a little different this year. Instead of a desert, it's some campground or something up in the California woods, can't remember where. Really high elevation, like almost 4,000 feet above sea level. Took a longing time to get there because a bunch of roads were closed for one reason or another. Finally pull up to the place after going through a dense part of the woods on a dirt road. Meet with our cousins and the property owner, start setting up all the stages and dance areas. Fast forward the next day, I'm wandering around as artists are practicing their sets and doing sound testing. I don't much care for psychedelic dance music, so I'm trying to find something to occupy some time. Find some abandoned tents and tarps from another event that happened recently. Paper plate note left behind for someone, mentioned something about not knowing where they went but that they were headed home now and didn't want to leave them wondering where their friends went. Weird, but whatever, sometimes people get left behind at these things. Start wandering around some of the off-road trails near the property owner's place. Tons of abandoned vehicle, old construction trucks and whatnot from the 60s and 70s. Very neat, always liked doing urbex. Kept following the trails, which eventually turned into off-roading trails like for four-wheelers and stuff. Notice a lot of RVs rotting in the woods too. Some were locked, some weren't. Broke into a few and they all still had things inside. Clothes, rags, kitchenware, random garbage mostly. Bit gross inside them, smells moldy too. Continue on the trail and start coming across remains of old wooden shacks. Shittens of rusty cans around, big ones too. Real old chassis from I think the 40s? 50s. There's at least 10 more ruins like that along the road. Figured I've seen enough for today and head back to the festival. The next day I head off to the opposite side of the campground. I walk along the dirt bike trail again, not as many buildings on this side, mostly just more thickets and brush. Come across a little footpath going deeper into the forest. Footpaths only show up in these areas because it leads to something important enough to visit it more than once. Decide to follow it for a bit, 15-minute walk or so. It was hot today and there were a bunch of mosquitoes there for some reason. Footpath leads to another shack, mostly just a big pile of rotted planks at this point. Lots of big cans piled up here too, even found a single loose boot. And another rusted out car chassis too, same 50s era. Very tucked away area, hard to imagine someone driving their car there. Hang around for a bit, sitting on top of the car, poking around the cans for any artifacts. I'm a stall/K/er bro. It starts getting dark despite it being 2 p.m. in the summer. It gets really quiet. My ears start ringing like I have tinnitus or something. Started feeling sick to my stomach. It starts to smell kinda bad too. Really starts to feel like I'm being watched. For whatever reason I'm stuck staring at this particular spot in the woods. Think I should leave. Turn around and nope the hell out of there. Whole time I'm looking behind me and can't shake the feeling I'm being chased. Still dead silent. Only thing I can hear are my shoes crunching twigs and leaves reverberating in my ears as I'm scrambling back up this path. Make it back to the four-wheeler trail. Didn't stop there and kept going to the edge of the campground. It gets brighter and I start to feel better. Everything sounds normal again. I go back to our RV and just chill for the rest of the festival. Stayed away from that half of the forest for the rest of my stay. Not sure if it was real or in my head. I think about it sometimes still.
Okay, I've only told this once before. It's not that exciting, but still, it's a family mystery. Be me, 8 years old or so, camping with family. Not just my immediate family, uncles, aunts, cousins and my grandparents. We're out in the Australian bush. It's super dark but have a big fire with all our tents and cars close by. Partying and getting drunk and stuff and having a classic good Aussie time. Suddenly hear a massive noise. Is that kind of growl cats make when they're fighting, but deep and monstrous. Uncles go WTF in unison. Sound is coming from the cars. Everyone is really quiet as we listen to this guttural growling. Uncle shines a light over near the car, sees nothing. Shines it a little more. There's a giant shadowy black mass right next to one of the cars, about the same size, if a little smaller than a forward. I'd say about 2 or so meters. One of my uncles flips out, starts yelling and screaming at the creature. Black mass goes slinking away. After a while we go back to chilling and playing music and stuff, normal Aussie reaction. Leave next day, but it's all we talk about. Every single person on one side of my family can corroborate this story. We still bring it up all the time. It was almost 2 decades ago now.
Not super spook compared to some other things I've experienced, but it's the most recent. Be me in early January. Show up at office early, around 4:15 a.m., because I want to leave earlier than normal. Walk through Cube Farm to bathroom for morning dump. Sit down and start my business. Just as I'm about to finish up and do the paperwork, hear a series of very loud bangs from somewhere else in the building. WTF.png. Wash hands and leave bathroom, stick my head into the cube of another guy who was in early, ask him WTF. He doesn't know what I'm talking about. Forget about it for months until another coworker tells me about a shooting at the building some years back. Glad I don't spend much time at the office since I'm a field tard. The face when I'm posting from the same bathroom because office day.
I have a few. Be 9 years old. Summertime. Be outside in the backyard. See my grandfather through one of the bedroom's windows. He is standing there looking at me. Confused. BC grandfather lives very far from us. We only see him once a year at Christmas. Run inside. Mom's washing dishes. I ask where's grandpa? Long story short, it's just me and mom in the house, nobody else. Later that day, we find out grandpa passed away. Mom later said it spooked her that I must have seen her dad's ghost in the house, but she figures he must have been checking on us before he crossed over. Another. Be around 13 years old. Helping dad move some stuff into the attic. We have a drop-down ladder. I'm at the bottom passing things up to dad. He goes, "What the hell?" A long pause. Scrambling, dad rushes down the stairs. Pops the drop-down ladder up, closing the attic. "What happened, dad?" Nothing." Years later he told me he saw something. A thick shadow, solid black. Stopped to watch it as it moved along the far wall and noticed he heard footsteps like dress shoes wherever the shadow moved. Noped TF out of there. Craziest part was that when I was younger I used to hear thumping sounds in the attic that used to wake me up at night, but my parents claimed never to hear it.
Curious if anyone has had anything similar. 17. Having trouble with sleep and SB. I am dreaming in a forest and wolves are chasing me. They get me, and attack my stomach. I fall on the ground. My brother comes out of nowhere and gets on top of me, asking if I am alright. I say, "You're not, brother." He smirks, and I wake up in SB with him on top of me in the same position. He is smirking, caressing my hand, and says, "We've seen your face, we will always be with you now." This was during a really shitty time in my life, so it was probably just a mind F, but like it all just seems too specific. Anybody had shit like this happen?
Hey Enans, I'll keep this brief. About 6 months ago, I had an unsettling yet profound experience that I've hesitated to share until now. My partner, who is deeply immersed in the arcane, guided me through an unusual meditation practice. While I've seen her engage in tarot readings and other mystical activities, I had never experienced anything paranormal firsthand, until that night. She led me through an hour-long meditation, instructing me in rhythmic breathing techniques and vivid visualizations. As the session concluded, she directed my attention to the fire of one of her protective candles, one she lights as a ward, and another to signal any external presence. As I gazed into the flickering flame, a warm, enveloping sensation washed over me, reminiscent of the comforting embrace of a mother cradling her child. My vision blurred slightly. From within the fire, I heard a voice, soothing and breathy, beckoning me to come to me. The invitation was repeated for a few seconds, each word carrying an otherworldly resonance I'd never felt before in sound, almost like the echo of a whisper inside an old church. Despite the intensity of the experience, I was rooted in place, unable to move. Sensing my hesitation, the voice gently reassured me, saying I needed a hug. Does anyone know what kind of entity/spirit could be behind this sort of interaction? I've been fascinated by it but also pretty shaken, so I've largely avoided investigating on it further, until now. TLDR, about 6 months ago, I participated in a strange meditation practice with my partner, who is experienced in the arcane. After an hour of guided meditation and visualization, I stared into the fire of her protective candle. I felt a warm, comforting presence and heard a soothing voice inviting me to come and eventually saying I needed a hug.
Be me wanna go stay for a weekend at my cabin. Nephew asks if he can come along. Why not, I guess. Nephew brings his gay little friend. Trying to relax in cabin but nephew and friend won't shut up. Talking about their horoscopes. Go outside but can still hear nephew and friend chatting in cabin like little girls. Gotta pee. Walk down trail to find a nice tree to piss on. Finish pissing. Go to pull up zipper and catch my tip in the zipper. Screaming in pain, my dick is really hurting. Start walking back to cabin still yelling and cussing up a storm. Catch sight of nephew and friend in window, both look scared shitless lol. Can hear nephew tell friend I've been replaced by a fleshlight. Don't understand, don't want to know. Well, time to sleep I guess. Both walk into my room while I'm getting ready for bed asking if I heard the screaming. Play dumb because embarrassed about catching my dick in the zipper like a idiot. Nephew's friend looking at me really weird. Look back and notice he peed himself a little.
Oh God, oh hate this green text format, but if this is how you Americans used to read. Okay, UFO story from my childhood. I was a boy 4 to 5 years old. It was somewhere 2004 or 2005 in small town in Kyrgyzstan. Hot summer evening, almost night. My family noticed meteor shower in the sky. My mom and sister decided to take a walk to observe. I joined. We were walking in the typical Soviet neighborhood, 5-story commie blocks. Noticed that something is a bit off with those meteors. Some of meteors were making unexpected moves, like zigzag patterns or something. Some of them were seems like chasing each other. A bit horrified but amused. We decided asked to join our family friends. We were randomly walking in the neighborhood and admiring the strange event. Walked out on straight and long road. Then we noticed that one of the meteors were like really close, maybe 200 meters above us. It was looking like a light ball and 3 to 4 meters in radius. My sister joked like, wow, would be cool to look at it closer. Unexpectedly this thing came down closer to road and flew towards us very quickly and silently. It was 2 meters above the road and was always parallel to it. In 10 meters from us this thing just disappeared. We were absolutely shocked and stunned, but eventually arrived safely to our apartment. I asked my sister and mother about this story several times in my life. They all confirmed that it was true. My mom said she saw UFOs several times during her life in this city. We moved. She told me story that one day she was hanging laundry to dry on the balcony and saw some cigar slowly flying across the sky and shining spotlights on something. I remember this light ball as a typical UFO, plate-shaped, but my sister and mom remember this as a light ball. Maybe just child fantasy did its thing.
Entity? 1995. Approximately 5 years old. Me playing hide and seek in my basement with my brother and sister. Hiding under a clothing rack my parents use for winter clothing. No one can find me and the basement light goes off. Climb out and see an entity at the basement steps. It's just a white outline of a human shape, think chalk outline of body but standing. Lights are blinking where its hands are and it's changing color. Don't feel scared at all. Don't remember what happened afterwards. UFO. Walking home from hospital on clear summer evening. Sky is a pale blue with moon and some stars starting to show even though it's still light out. See a satellite moving across the sky slowly. It stops. It starts moving in another direction slowly at first, then accelerates and disappears. It was moving as fast or faster than a shooting star. Sleep paralysis. 19 years old. Year is 2009. Friend is into meditation and other weird shit. Tells me to do breathing exercises while I lay in bed. Follow his instructions and feel my body fall asleep but my mind is still awake. See weird shit like if you press your eyes really hard. Eventually fall asleep. Wake up and cannot move. Sense presence that wants me to go back to sleep. Vision narrows. Shake my head and hit wall. Wake up again in same position. Dream within a dream. Still cannot move and same sensation. Managed to jerk head again and run out of bedroom. I realized later I gave myself sleep paralysis that night and I've had it ever since. Last time it happened I heard whispering next to my pillow. Another time it was growling above my bed. January 2008. Unseasonably warm weather, high 50s with snow still covering everything at night. Best friend and I decide to go on a night hike in the Cleveland Metro Parks. We know this forest well and grew up exploring it. Snow is covering everything so we can see very well even at night. Decide to tell my friend an eerie folktale from Pick related. The story is about a tribe of Indians that keep getting their fish stolen from nets at a lake. They hide so they can see which tribe is stealing from them. As they watch, a stone boat comes out of a rock face on the lake and starts coming towards their fishing spot. It has 3 ugly little men on it. The ugly little men start to pull up the nets so the Indians yell out. All 3 drop the net and cover their faces with their hands as the boat goes back to the rock wall. As I get to this point in the story, we are near the exit when we hear a noise erupt right behind us. Unlike anything either of us has ever heard. We both freeze but the noise continues. The path we are on is at the top of a ravine that overlooks the whole area in both directions. Scan the whole area and see nothing. Noise won't stop, keeps getting louder and sounds like it's coming from all around us now. We both turn and run to the until we are back on the street. Come back the next morning by myself. Only tracks in the snow are ours. I've heard coyotes all over the woods from various distances and it sounded nothing like them. I've even heard what I can only assume was coyotes taking down a deer. Not like it at all. We have both looked into animal sounds and nothing matches. We even looked into mountain lion sounds. Nothing is comparable. The sound reminded me of the noise that the aliens from Pitch Black made, but only vaguely. The first time I heard coyotes in the woods at night, I was alone and it wasn't scary to me. This noise I heard with my best friend sent chills up my spine. It's a feeling I've never experienced since.